Deputy Speaker, the people of Hotham returned a Labor member to this House because they wanted to be represented by a person and by a party that would stand up for their interests and protect their jobs. It's in this spirit tonight that I rise to express the anger in my community about the incompetent and feeble manner in which the government has handled the decline of the auto manufacturing industry and the emerging unemployment problem in the southeastern suburbs of Melbourne. Speaker, just over a year ago, the Treasurer stood opposite me in this chamber and goaded Holden and Toyota to cease car manufacturing in Australia. Car manufacturing accounts for 6,000 jobs amongst the 4 local government areas I represent. 1,000 people alone in the Hotham electorate are directly employed by car manufacturing companies and components parts manufacturers. Many families that I represent will see their breadwinner lose their job. This will put 5,000 small businesses operating in my electorate under threat and threaten the jobs of many others who rely on what was a thriving local economy. Now, I don't want to list the businesses affected, Speaker, because I don't want to create additional problems by talking those businesses down. Suffice to say that I have visited factories that were humming 18 months ago that have for rent signs on the fences today. I have spoken to managers who have already had heartbreaking conversations with workers who have been with them for decades. And I want to remind you, Deputy Speaker, that this is a government that came to office promising it would create 1 million jobs, and yet they could hardly have started their term with a more shocking economic record. Labor got Australia through the global financial crisis with barely a blip, yet today unemployment is much higher than it ever was during the global financial crisis. 11% of the workforce are unemployed, 20% of 15 to 19-year-olds, Deputy Speaker. The last time unemployment was this high, our Prime Minister was the Employment Minister of this nation. Underemployment is also rising, a further 9% of the workforce not able to find the hours that they want and need. Now, Deputy Speaker, imagine a government faced with these figures. Of course, they would be spurred immediately into action, because nothing could be more critical than a government ensuring that workers around this country have a job. And yet, what is the government doing? Speaker, when we look at the facts, it makes my blood boil. First, instead of trying to slow the transition of Holden and Toyota out of Australia so we can manage the unemployment that will result from this change, the government is trying to cut an additional $900 million as part of the Automotive Transformation Scheme. Now, Labor is holding up this funding cut in the Senate, but if it gets through, the car industry is going to leave much more quickly than the 2017 date they've given us. So this is the first key plank in the Coalition's policy framework. Get them out quicker, leading to an earlier collapse and a disorderly transition. Now, second, Deputy Speaker, the government has talked about a $30 million skills and training program. Did you know that this program is not money from government, but money that Holden and Toyota have pledged to support these workers? Not a cent of that $30 million quote-unquote announcement is money from government. Now, third, the government has talked of this automotive industry structural adjustment program, and I've looked into this one too. And when you follow the links online to get information about what this program is, it takes you back to the Job Services Australia site. So this program, this $15 million, is simply the additional cost that government expects to incur from an additional 200,000 people that are going to need support into alternative employment. It's not extra money, it's money the Commonwealth would have incurred anyway. Now, these are the only 2 programs that the government has announced will support these workers. I'm going to call on the government to do some very specific things that happen. I'm not going to criticise and leave them without a solution. The first thing that the government should be doing is they need a regional jobs plan for the southeastern suburbs of Melbourne. Secondly, it needs to involve investment in innovation to ensure that we can attract new companies and industries to areas like Hotham. The third thing we need is specific support for workers. It's that basic, Deputy Speaker. Workers will need good advice on regional jobs markets in the medium term. I want to see every auto worker in my electorate with a realistic pathway to ongoing employment beyond their job disappearing. I want to see real support and real training for skills development, and I want to see that, Deputy Speaker, now, not when these people hit the back of a dog queue. Now, we may need to go further than this, but these are the very bare minimums that any Australian citizen who has this government to thank for losing their livelihoods should be entitled to. And until that proper support is provided, I'll be standing in this parliament and fighting for local jobs in my community of Hotham. That is what my constituents elected me to do.